give as good as we get. Yeah, I get criticized all the time. I criticize people in return. That's part of the job in the public sphere when you're trying to make a difference, when you're trying to influence policy, when you're trying to improve the state that you love. Yeah, there are going to be some people who are so beholden to the way that things have always been done that when you start to be effective, you start to be attacked. And one of the things I've learned is you have to stand by your friends in this business and in this realm. And I will tell you that if my friends are at war against insanity, then I'll stand side by side with them. And last night, that's one of the reasons I posted a picture of Nicole and I with Andrea Suarez of We Heart Seattle. Because I don't know if you heard, but Andrea Suarez is being subjected to a renewed line of attack about the work she's done with We Heart. So I posted a picture without much context about what I was going to discuss today. And I think I said, watch out, Seattle, common sense is coming for you.
Yes.
Yes. And I just happen to also think that's a very good picture of us.
I know.
A very fine picture. Although some lady on the internet called us fat. I was like, excuse me.
No, she said we're bigger than she thought.
Bigger? What do you mean bigger? Taller? Bigger brains? What is it? What is it? Anyway, I'm off track.
People are very bold online.
Very bold online behind their keyboards. So anyway, I saw yesterday online that Andrea Suarez was being subjected to renewed attacks for the work that she's doing with We Heart Seattle. So I wanted Andrea to know, I got your back, and I will go to battle with you, and I'll stand side by side with you proudly because I believe in the work that she's doing. And I believe, look, Andrea is a wild lady. She is. We've had her on the show. We've met her in person. She is a unique kind of human being, and you have to be. To go from being a private citizen to deciding one day that you're sick and tired of looking at the trash in the beautiful parks in the city where you live, and that you're going to go start to freaking clean it up because the city's not doing it. That takes a special kind of person. And she is certainly outside of the Seattle bubble of homeless industrial complex where they have a certain way of doing things. She's unorthodox. But you know what? Orthodox isn't working. And because Andrea is effective and because she has built this entire ecosystem, again, starting with herself just cleaning up trash in homeless encampments. That's how this started. Let's not forget that. This didn't start with some, lady getting rich off of going out and cleaning up trash at encampments because she was, it was lucrative for her. It was fun for her. It was enjoyable. It was none of the above. It is none of the above. So this started with just a private citizen going out and cleaning up trash because no one else was freaking doing it. And she was watching the city around her go to hell. And she has started a movement from it. They have thousands of volunteers who go out. We have gone out. Some of you have gone out to clean up trash in city right-of-ways that has been festering there for decades. Andrea goes out there. She cuts through the government bureaucracy and red tape. And she gets people connected to services. She does more on her little island than we've seen the homeless industrial complex for all of its billions of dollars in taxpayer money that's been wasted. She does more than they could ever hope to do. And that's why the homeless industrial complex hates her so much. And that is why Stop the Sweep activists who live and breathe to see these homeless people stay in place, to see them die with a needle in their arm, to see them raped in the tents, to see them victimized while living on the streets. That's why those far left fringe activists who want to leave these homeless people in place hate Andrea Suarez so much. Why they go to such great lengths to attack her character and her work. Because they don't want people off the streets. You have to realize that. You have to understand that. They do not want people off the streets. If the homeless industrial complex wanted people off the streets, we wouldn't have a homeless crisis because they get billions of dollars. There's thousands of people who work for the government within that institution at the city level, at the county level, at the state level. And we have a worse homeless crisis than we've ever had. If they wanted to fix it, they could, but they don't. They want to keep those big bloated government paychecks and salaries and checks for contract work coming in. So that's that. And then you look at the activists. And again, like I said, everything they do, everything they say, without a shadow of a doubt, is designed to keep people living in squalor and filth and death and addiction. They want to go out and harm reduction. Oh, get these people the needles they need and everything they need to be able to continue to use the drugs that are killing them. They go out and protest sweeps because they'd rather have someone living in squalor and die in their tent than they would, have some sort of, interaction with law enforcement. And I, for the life of me, don't really know what is motivating the far left activists to want to so badly keep people living in filth. I cannot wrap my mind around it. So anyway, those are the people who are attacking Andrea Suarez and We Heart Seattle and have since We Heart's inception. They can't stand that she's doing what she's doing outside of the system because it hurts their bottom line, right? Well, if Andrea can do this for a fraction of the cost with volunteers, what does that mean for our multi-million-dollar lucrative contract with the city or the county or the state? It's all about money. It's not about lives. It's not about homeless people. Give me a freaking break. Now, what disappoints me is when the media plays that game. I've said before, people are like, you're so critical of Democrats. Oh, you must be a Republican, all of this. I'm critical of Democrats because Democrats are in power. And I believe it is the fundamental job of the media to hold the powerful accountable. And so in this state, if you're seeking to do that, that is the Democrats, that is the progressives. And in this state, if you're a member of the media and you have all this power and this influence to ask people in power difficult questions, to hold them accountable for what they do or what they don't do, and if you're covering the homeless crisis, where are you going to put your power and your energy as a member of the media? Would you not put it at the government? Would you not spend that time and that energy and your reporting and your power directed at an ecosystem that spends billions of dollars in taxpayer money to only make things worse? You certainly wouldn't spend it criticizing Andrea Suarez and her team of volunteers that operates off of donations and out of the good of their heart is out there helping people. Because in the grand scheme of things, Andrea is just a speck in the whole industrial complex, and she's not using taxpayer funds. So I was disappointed to see that my friends over at Cairo Radio spent a lot of airtime and a lot of energy on a series of stories attacking Andrea Suarez and We Heart Seattle. Now look, I'll just caveat this with I love my friends at Cairo Radio. I started my career there. Nicole and I both worked there. That's how we met. I have a lot of, how do I put this? I still have a lot of friends that work there. So I'm not quick to criticize them, but I criticize all the media, and so they're fair game as well. And I will say, so they put out this series, video series, and it looked at the work Andrea Suarez and We Heart Seattle is doing, and then it dove into the controversy around her, which I believe is completely manufactured by the far left because they cannot stand that she's working outside the system and having more success. So I think it was a 4-part series, is that right, Nicole? 4, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. From Cairo Radio. The first one's about Andrea Suarez and the work that they're doing. And then the second one dives right into what people say about her on the internet. Here is a clip.
Search engine results for the nonprofit's name lead to countless accusations across multiple social media platforms. The posts accuse We Heart Seattle of lying to people living in the camps about who they are and not getting permission from people before throwing their belongings away. The scathing entries come from critics as well as those purporting to be close to homeless people We Heart Seattle has interacted with. An entire website is dedicated to documenting alleged misdeeds of the organization.
So when I hear that, I'm like, so a bunch of random internet trolls, basically. And that's what the critique of Andrea is. It comes from these far left internet trolls who post anonymously, many of them, who have a website. Oh, Andrea's throwing away homeless people's belongings. Andrea's doing this. Andrea's doing that. And again, ask yourself the question as we go through this. Why would people be so committed to attacking a woman who decided one day to go clean up trash in her neighborhood? Ask yourself that question. So the whole crux of the attacks on her are based on online smears, which I think are completely ridiculous and manufactured. But then this Cairo Radio report actually speaks to and highlights the voices of some of the far left fringe activists, the Stop the Sweeps crowd, who just don't like what Andrea is doing. One of them, her name is Alicia Ramirez, and she's just sort of your run-of-the-mill internet troll. I think she works at a QFC in Kirkland. So she's not in the homeless the homeless realm. She's just a random activist who calls herself an anarchist on Twitter. Like, she's just a random person on the internet who Cairo Radio decides to elevate as this voice to criticize Andrea Suarez for not having the proper training to go about this kind of work.
When like Reach and Lead will go out and do when they'll go out and do outreach, these are trained social workers that are also, they're also coming along. So they have the training and knowledge to make that harm less impactful, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't, because how has that worked? So you're sitting there saying, oh, Reach and Lead, these government contractors and entities, they're trained in this. They can go out and they're social workers. And how has that worked, Alicia? How has that gone? These trained social workers going out there, being paid by the taxpayers. How has that gone? Not well. Not well for the homeless people living on the streets. Not well for the city. Not well at all, by any measure. So they might have a social worker degree or a license, but it is clear that what they're doing is not effective. I would also say one of the things noted in this story is that Andrea Suarez has found several dead people while she's been out clearing these encampments. In fact, one of the encampment clearings that was done on city property, Andrea found a body that had been there for so long, it was just bones. And Cairo Radio and the reporter Sam Campbell acknowledges that in this piece.
Despite the accusations and doubt cast on the organization's ethics, We Heart Seattle and its volunteers were the ones to find the person's remains near Dexter Avenue. It's city land, and yet city crews had not found the person's corpse long enough for it to decompose down to the bone.
Yeah, so tell me again why we should be leaving this up to city contractors. The city contractors that Alicia Ramirez, the anarchist activist, says, oh, they're trained to do this kind of stuff. Well, obviously they're not trained well enough to spot a body that's decomposing down to the bones on city property. Apparently they hadn't been out there doing their trained, certified, city-approved outreach in quite a while. So Andrea and her team go out and do it, no strings attached to the city, no social worker degree or whatever you need. But they were able to find these remains and give closure to a family because they care enough to go in and do the difficult work. License taxpayer funds be damned. Now let's listen to another of the far left fringe activists whose voices are inexplicably being elevated in an effort to smear and criticize the work of a volunteer.
I know outreach workers have to spend a lot of effort in some cases demonstrating that they're sincere, and it's a real issue. It's creating more barriers.
Oh, creating more barriers. That's Aidan Carroll, an activist who, again, is reiterating, look, Andrea's not trained in all of this, and she has to go out and spend time convincing people that she's trustworthy and that her tactics are sound. And I was listening to that, and I thought, Aidan Carroll, that sounds awful familiar. And then I remembered that just last month, Aidan Carroll was among the 6 people who were arrested at Seattle City Hall for their threatening and harassing behavior of the council members. In fact, Aidan Carroll wasn't only one of the ones who were arrested and trespassed out of City Hall, but Aidan Carroll was also accused of obstructing law enforcement. And this is not his first rodeo. In fact, we had found a bio for him online for UW when he was a student there that talked about how on his free time he enjoys agitating for change Is that him agitating for change? Him and his group slamming on the glass outside the Seattle City Council chambers because they would not listen to them about giving free housing to asylum seekers? So here we are elevating the voice of dangerous activists who aren't doing anything to help the people on the street. People who, I'm sorry to say it like this, aren't anyone important in that sphere. Again, a grocery store worker in Kirkland, like that's fine, nothing against grocery store workers, but why are you qualified to be lifted up on the news as some expert voice to criticize a woman who is doing more than you ever even thought of doing for the city of Seattle? And then you're elevating the voice of a fringe activist who's been arrested on numerous occasions for his tactics, but you're going to lift him up so he can question the tactics of Andrea Suarez, whose only goal is to go out there and clean up the city and help people? What in the world is this? This is wild, wild stuff. And this is exactly how Seattle got into this position, is giving crazy fringe lunatics a voice. As if their voice should be held on equal footing to the voice of people like Andrea who are actually out there doing the difficult work. You're talking about keyboard warriors, far-left fringe activists who go and throw a fit and throw a tantrum when they don't get their way. Why do they need a voice on the news? It's wild to me. And here's Andrea. For those who are watching, she has a very nice hat on in this story, which I appreciate. But here's Andrea talking about the criticism that she's not a social worker.
When you're doing those welfare checks, do you have caseworkers here with you?
We are caseworkers. Tim and I are caseworkers. We've been doing this for 3.5 years. We've been through trauma-informed care training, de-escalation training, on-the-job training. My educators are the 200 people and the thousands of homeless that we've met right here on the slopes that have said, you guys are game changers.
But in terms of state or city license for caseworking,
I don't know, did Jesus Christ have a license?
I love that so much. Like, literally, do you need to have a license to go out and ask people if they want help? Is that what our contention is? That doesn't seem very progressive or empathetic to me. You're saying, oh, you have to have a social working license to go out and ask people if they need help and connect them to that help. You have to have a social worker's license to go clean up the city that you love. Is that really where we've come? Is that really where we're using our power and our influence as members of the media in this entire ecosystem of the homeless industrial complex? Let's focus on the woman who's operating off of volunteer funds and volunteer hours and who's out there getting her hands dirty, doing the work, working like 20 hours a day. Let's focus our energy on criticizing her and criticizing her using the voices of far left fringe activists who have never helped a homeless person a day in their freaking lives. And let's ignore the big elephant in the room, the failed homeless industrial complex that is taking billions of dollars from all of us hardworking people and squandering it. Let's focus on Andrea instead. Give me a freaking break. I will go to war for Andrea, just like I will go to war alongside anyone who stands for sanity in an insane world. And I will not use an ounce of my influence, of my time, criticizing people like Andrea, who are just trying to make a positive difference where the government is failing.